What's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome into the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB Network. We are on the Rams LAFB YouTube page, LAFBnetwork.com, and anywhere you get your podcast. Thank you, as always, for making us a part of your day. After a tough loss last week, a heartbreaker in overtime in Detroit, but a hard-fought battle, 26-20. The Rams fought valiantly, but fell just short. We now move forward to the Arizona Cardinals. A division foe that the Rams have typically always played very well against. Sean McVay, no matter who the coach is down in Arizona, has won seemingly every game against this Cardinals team. But a talented Rams team facing a lot of injuries. And so, not at full strength. Obviously, a lot of injuries going into the season. Just yesterday, Skinny placed 3 starters, or 2.5 starters, if you will, on IR. Puka Nacua, Steve Avila, starting guard, and Joe Noteboom, who started at tackle last week, but is kind of that swing backup player who is playing for Alaric Jackson, who is suspended still for this week. So an uphill battle. We're going to get all into it, talk about some new additions, preview the game, and just give our thoughts on the state of this Rams team. But first and foremost, my man, Skinny T. What's up, brother? Happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday to you as well. I am, you can tell, in a different location. I am in Northern California, so I didn't experience the last bit of the heat wave, nor the earthquake in Malibu, California. But I'm in beautiful Marin County, California, and it's always fantastic here. It's beautiful. The weather's wonderful, and but always here for you guys for the Ramley. Can't miss this.
That's right. I know. Appreciate you being here. I know there's always a bit of a rivalry between NorCal and SoCal, but I mean, Marin County is one of the most beautiful counties in all of California. So enjoy it up there. But we have what feels like Marin County weather now down here in LA, a breezy, cool 70s today in the Southland. It's beautiful. I wore a hoodie this morning taking my daughter to school. It was amazing after triple digits. The craziness on Monday, hitting, I think we hit still in Pasadena here, 111 on Monday. Tuesday dropped to like 82. And then, Tuesday. And then my days are all wrong. Anyway, this morning, when I took her to school, it was like 61. So literally almost a 50-degree difference over like a 48-hour period. Crazy. Wow. So, but yeah, earthquake weather. Hope everyone's good there. Fires are all across Southland. Unfortunately, Wrightwood is being hit. I have family that lives up there, so they're in risk of losing homes. So a lot of, unfortunate, crazy weather. Hope everyone's safe and healthy and looking after loved ones. That's most important. But hopefully, no matter what, we can give you some relief and talk Rams football and enjoy the Ramley, as you said, together, because that's what we all are, even if we disagree on things. Like, this is the Ramley, and we love talking Rams football with all of you. So before getting into the preview, show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It's going to get you a welcome bonus on that first deposit. You can tell them the guys over at the Rams Skinny sent you. You get some free money to play with. And you do that. And if we look at this Rams and Cardinals game, the Rams are a 1-point dog, actually, against the Cardinals. Cardinals are a 1-point favorite against our banged up Rams. So take that for what you want, but all that can be done at betonline.ag. All right, state of the Rams first. Let's start with that, and then we'll get to kind of the additions and the preview. A lot of chatter this week. A lot of people we respect and friends with and other content creators and journalists about kind of where this Rams team truly sits in the arc of NFL power rankings. And, who really cares about rankings after 1 week? This Rams team was 3-6 last year, made the playoffs. So anything we say is all just, fodder at this point, because it's a long season, a long way to go. But I think we've seen some people think last week's performance, because of how well they fought, it's worth a higher ranking than maybe what you and I think. But I'll just toss to you, like, where do you think the state of this Rams team is right now? Not the ceiling of this Rams team when healthy. The roster that's going to be on the field on Sunday, where does this Rams team sit to you?
Well, there's the rankings that are the opinions of these of journalists, and then there's the actual analytics that came out after the game. So different EPA per play and DVOA and things like that. And those places are a lot less high on the Rams. Now, a valiant effort against a playoff opponent. obviously that gives some respect. Sean McVay is going to always put his team in the best place to win games. And then you got Matthew Stafford and you got Cooper Kupp, and that's worth a lot. But I didn't walk away from that game feeling great about the defense. They got pushed around on the ground. Going back to those analytics rankings, you're looking at some of those, and they're in the bottom third of the league. They are at 23rd in DVOA on defense, and even worse against the run. Some places have it was the worst performance by run defense. Now this is a good opponent, but I didn't walk away from that game feeling encouraged by it. I thought they got lucky. I thought Goff played terribly. I thought there were some things that fell in their favor, and I thought Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp played lights out. The rest of it, well, Jared Verse also had a fantastic game. Got to throw that in there. Led the team in pressures with 6 and had a sack. So, but that's not a whole team. Matthew Stafford is going to continue to get pressured. He was one of the most pressured quarterbacks last week. And that's got to change. I would love to see this play calling change. We touched on it in our live reaction episode afterwards. There was no semblance of a running game. Blake Corum didn't play a single snap on offense, played a few on special teams. So I got tons and tons of questions, and this is a much easier opponent. They put up 28 points against the Buffalo Bills, but one of them was a special teams return. Another one was a defensive touchdown. So their offense isn't humming, and their defense isn't as formidable, certainly as what they saw against the Lions. So, I mean, we'll get to predictions after that, but what are your thoughts on where they stand?
Yeah, I think, we touched on the live, so we won't spend a ton of time, but just to kind of reiterate, like, this is not trying to be a doom and gloom analysis, but it's got to be realistic based on the play that we saw, and then based on the players now available to them and what they will be going up against. And, I think this team played their absolute butts off on Sunday night. Like, take nothing away from them. They took like you said, a playoff team that was pretty much fully healthy to the brink, took them to overtime. Probably should have honestly won if they executed a few plays on those at the final end of the game and were able to kind of salt the game away a little bit, or take some more time off the clock. So take nothing away from the way they played and how hard they played. But what we said kind of in the live, and what we've kind of said throughout the week, and even in some of our writing, is that's all great on a game by game basis, but that's not a sustainable formula to being a top 5, top 10 team in the NFL, because guess what? Now there's a week of film on this team, and everyone can see, like, as you mentioned, oh yeah, they can't stop the run. Look what the Lions did in overtime. And we can sit here and say, oh, well, they're a young team. They were gassed. Well, it's not really an excuse. Yeah, we can say that is true to what happened, but that doesn't all of a sudden give you an excuse to have you a top ranked team just because, well, you were young and out of gas. Like, well, you literally just got steamrolled down the field in overtime on all running plays and weren't able to slow it down. So that's my concern. Now, the Rams also have tape, and they also have very, very good coaching. So they're going to be improved in certain areas as well. And that's what they have going for them, is you still have Sean McVay, you still have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp leading this charge, and you have Chris Shula, who I thought overall called a very good game as his first game ever defensive coordinator, first game that counts, I guess, defensive coordinator. But you gave up 163 yards on the ground. You gave up 6 yards per play, 363 total yards. As you mentioned, Jared Goff did not play well. You could attribute that to some of the defensive play, certainly. But I think there was a lot. Anyone that watched the game could say Jared Goff did not play a good game. Like, yeah, there was some forced stuff from the Rams, but there was a lot of unforced errors on his part. Now, Kyler Murray's a very different style quarterback, obviously, way shiftier. So you got to keep him in the pocket. When he can get outside the pocket and use his legs, that's when he can really do damage. So as we get into the preview, we'll talk more about that. But yeah, this is a team that I'm not long-term. I'm not worried. I still think this is a playoff team, but going into week 2 right now, looking at the injuries, looking at the patchwork offensive line, looking at now whatever other teams kind of know, like, this is not a top 10 football roster right now. Doesn't mean they still can't win on Sunday. And we know the scheme that Sean McVay will come up with will certainly put them, hopefully, in the best situation. And as we'll talk about, we hope that includes running the football a lot more and not forcing Matthew Stafford to potentially throw close to 50 times, because with this offensive line, that is not a recipe for success. I don't care what anyone says and how great Matthew Stafford is. As we talked about a little bit with Coach Rowe, whether you agree with him or not, but as a coach, when you have a weaker offensive line, being able to establish any semblance of run game is going to help no matter what. And so I'm not saying that's easy to do, but you gotta attempt it more than 18, 19 times. Like, you gotta establish that a little bit, that it's gonna be in the wheelhouse and whatnot. So yeah, concerns in the sense that it's just a banged up football team. Not concerned in the sense of, if things progress in the right direction, guys get healthy, that this is still a playoff team. Like we said at the top, like, this team was 3-6 last year, made the playoffs. So no reason to panic whatsoever. But it's definitely not, in my opinion, a top roster in football right now.
Yeah, I think of an analogy I've heard several times. You go out and you buy the Ferrari, and you get it home and it's leaking oil on your garage floor. We're in a bit of a leaking oil from your Ferrari right now.
Yeah.
We got to get that thing into the shop. We got to get that offensive line back healthy. Based on some of the moves that happened after they put these guys on IR, I don't know what the outlook is for some of these guys that went onto the IR. I think it's funny that for some reason over the last couple of years, journalists have started doing this where they say out at least 4 weeks. It's just funny because for a long time they would just say it's going on the IR, but now for whatever reason everybody's saying at least 4 weeks. But that's neither here nor there. But they're out at least 4 weeks, so the return date is post bye week, and that I was looking at that week 6 bye week as I'm not too excited to have an early bye week there, but now it's looking real necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's looking not just nice, but necessary if they can get because Sean McVay said yesterday that Puka Nacua may be even longer than 4 weeks. It's and seemingly it's feeling very similar to what Cooper Kupp went through last year, how banged up in training camp and then ended up going on the IR right before the season, and then even when he got back wasn't fully himself. So unfortunately, that's unfortunate news. Now, luckily at the skill position wise, I think the Rams are in a much better spot than offensive line in terms of who's available to them still at this point. And Cooper Kupp showed last week that he still is one of the best receivers in football when healthy. But hopefully there'll be some learnings from last year. And even though it's not ideal, hopefully they'll just keep keep Puka out as long as needed till he is absolutely 100%. So it's not just a lingering issue, and we can finally see these two guys together fully healthy. We still haven't seen that. I mean, what did we get it for a quarter last night? And then maybe we could argue Puka wasn't even fully healthy based on reports afterwards.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was one of the things we wanted to see. We wanted to see the running game churning, and we wanted to see these two guys healthy together. And unfortunately, that's, we're going to be mid-season, it sounds like, before we get to see that. And my doom and gloom brain, you guys know that I'm not always the most positive, but I like to be realistic and use my brain about these things. Puka or Kupp's usage, he was 21 targets last week, 19 targets, something crazy like that. That's 2021 levels. And obviously he did a great job in 2021, but that continued into 2022, and he was just getting beat up. And the unfortunate reality about the McVay offense is that he uses his wide receivers as blockers, throwing over the middle, some stuff out on the perimeter, but these guys are getting hit more than one time, not just getting pushed out of bounds. So the wear and tear on their bodies always concerns me. Always has with Puka, now with Kupp as well. So I'm not even gonna speak it. I'm not gonna manifest it. But I'm just saying the usage is high.
Yeah, very high. And we want to see other guys involved too. That's been kind of, if we can critique Stafford at all, because he's playing phenomenal. after last week, looked like a top 5 quarterback easily, hard to argue. But the one critique we've had, and this is just not with the Rams over his course of his career, when you look at the Calvin Johnson years, is he definitely hones in on one guy, and that is his go-to guy. And rightfully so. When you're Cooper Kupp, he should be, but no Tutu Atwell targets. What, one Jordan Whittington catch, I believe.
Yeah.
Just very, very little usage around. And I get it. If no one's stopping Cooper Kupp, why would you not go back to the well? But like you said, because of the injury history, because of what these guys are tasked to do in this offense as also blockers and going over the middle constantly, sometimes you need to spread it around just to give the other guys some semblance of safety, if you will, like protect them a little bit by almost not going to them in a weird way. That's asking a lot, easier said than done, but that's been one thing that we have been, I don't know if critical is the right word, but one minor critique we've said. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's not even a criticism. Obviously, it works when it works, but the injuries happen in football. It's a reality. So looking at the different receivers here and their targets, 7 for Tyler Johnson, 7 for Demarcus Robinson, which didn't feel like it. 4 for Puka Nacua, 5 for Colby Parkinson, 3 for Kyron Williams, three receptions for 4 yards, and then one toss towards Davis Allen.
Yeah. So, yeah, just would love to see that. And what was the total for Cup? Was it 21?
It was 21.
Yeah. So
21 targets. And that was top. That was a top mark in the whole NFL for week 1.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it goes back to just showing how much they were throwing the ball.
Yeah. When you name list all those numbers, 2 guys had 7 and Cup had 21, and there were still other, like, just threw the ball a lot. So, all right. Well, a few additions this week that, we could potentially see 1 or 2 of them start, and they're coming as free agent additions, as the Rams try to add to their offensive line. Like, we saw them have to do this in training camp with injuries, had to add bodies in order to kind of even just get through training camp. But they add Tyler Neskey, who actually was with the Rams in 2022, 38 years old, so a vet. We'll talk a little bit, but I would see him more as a depth piece. Garin Christian, who actually started 9 games last year for Cleveland. So I would actually expect him to potentially start at left tackle, depending on the Rob Havenstein situation. And if Havenstein does start, do they feel more comfortable with McClendon sliding over to left tackle, even though he's been playing right, or feel better with Christian coming off the street, starting there and using McClendon as depth? And then also added Dylan McMahon off of the Eagles practice squad, who we've heard, I did some reading, and they actually really liked him. He's a really talented kid that, has a high upside, so can play, I think, center and guards, a little versatility there. So depending on Kevin Dotson's status, who is also on the injury report with a kind of ankle injury, if he can't go, do you play Logan Bruss at guard, or do you play McMahon, who you just brought in? Do you play? Yeah, I mean, there's this offensive line is just a mess. So, but quickly, we don't got to dive into it a ton, but just your thoughts on those 3 additions.
Yeah, I think they found some good backups there. Huron started some games, but as a backup in Cleveland, and so you got to do what you got to do at this point, and they're gum and toothpicks and duct taping this thing together, just hoping to get to that bye week at this point, it seems like. And it's just amazing how snake bitten this particular group can get so quickly. I don't know what to attribute that to. That's where my mind goes to, is like, why did this happen in 2022 and why is this happening now? I think they had to do it. They had to add some bodies, and they did it. So
yeah, I mentioned it on the live.
It's going to be better than AJ Arcuri as well.
Yeah,
giving up six pressures in a limited amount of time.
Yeah, I think he had a 1.6 pass blocking grade.
Yikes.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I mean, that's going against Max Crosby, so
it wasn't well. Aiden Hutchinson, you mean? But yeah. Other white pass rusher. So
other LA opponent as well.
Other LA. Yeah, Max Crosby playing the Chargers, but Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's you never want to go into a week with starting someone that you added a day ago. They added them on Wednesday, so not even with the early preparation. Like they'll basically have they had yesterday to get acclimated, and then today and Friday and Saturday is basically walk through and travel day, and Sunday's game time. So not a lot of preparation there. I would hope, and we'll get to. I know there was a big defensive acquisition, so we'll get to that in a minute. But I would again I want to keep saying this. I know it's obvious, but Sean McVay is a damn smart offensive genius and an offensive play caller, even though we do think he's a little stubborn at times, but he knows better than me. But if it was me, like you brought in Colby Parkins, I know they targeted him 5 times last week, but he was brought in mostly for his pass block or his blocking tight end ability in the run game and the pass game. And so I think you got to go, especially with Puka Nacua out now, you got to go heavier on these tight end sets. And if Rob Havenstein's a go, and if Kevin Dotson's a go, clearly the right side of your offensive line is your strength because the left side you're going all bang from center on over. It's all basically new. I know you got Jonah Jackson, who is the one lone healthy, but he's going to be playing next to essentially 2 new starters on either side of him. So the right side is your strength. So I'm going for sure 1 tight end sets, but sometimes 2 tight end sets and overloading that right side and running straight at the right side until the Cardinals can prove they stop it. Just go heavy there. And then if even in the pass game, we're going to the right side, you got to play to your strength there. And if those guys are healthy, those are your strength. Now, if Havenstein's out again and you're starting McClendon, who at least has some experience, I probably would still do the same. But then maybe you get creative with, okay, what are we doing with Jonah Jackson and whatnot? But the hope would be if you get Havenstein there, you double up on that right side, use Colby Parkinson as the great blocker that he is, and just run counters and powers all day to the right side. And then even when you're passing, kind of you're eluding that right side and getting the ball out quickly because those left side blitzes, those blind side blitzes, regardless if we know it's not going to be a Curie, he was moved to the practice squad, but if it's one of the new guys or not, tough sledding coming from that left side. So I think everything's got to be funneled to the right.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you there. The question is, we saw some 12 personnel being played at training camp, and there was some rumors that there was going to be some of that worked in there. I don't remember seeing any two tight end sets, but there's the there's a practice element to that. All summer they've been practicing 11 personnel, and basically for the last 8 years, practicing that. But they got to have those plays somewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it was said and it was obvious, but McVay said it after the game that they were basically re-game planning on the fly against Detroit, and so you can't fault them for what they had to do and had to get done, and still played a hell of a game and brought it to overtime. When you lose that many players in game, that's obviously not in the script, and you got to go off script and plan things. Go ahead.
When he said that he kept Blake Corum out because of the offensive line injuries, and I think what that translates to me is Kyron Williams is the better person in the blocking schemes because it was required of them to have to block, and it took him even some time to kind of get up to speed on the Rams. So I think probably Blake Corum is not quite there yet on that facet.
Yeah, which makes sense, and they probably even have certain. I know we've talked all summer about like they drafted him so they didn't have to have specific plays because they have the same skill set, but still a rookie. They probably have certain play designs that are set up for him, so he's not having to overthink things. And when you're changing things on the fly, that would make sense. So hopefully they'll have some semblance of a game plan that can stay intact because of the group that's out there on Sunday. They don't have to redistribute everything. So looking at the defense, Kobe Durant gets a little banged up. He's probably going to be on the injury report, but we haven't heard if he's in or out for the game. It seems like trending towards playing, but the Rams did go out and add a familiar face at this point of this recording, added to the practice squad. So don't know if he'll be called up or not. But Akello Witherspoon back in horns. Up and down season last year, but overall, I thought a really good acquisition for what they got for him and what they paid for him. And I thought played well overall. Again, bit of a roller coaster, but he was one of their strongest corners, I think, last year. So made a lot of sense them bringing him back. Took longer than I think a lot of people expected because there was mutual interest, but he is back in horns. Your thoughts on him, and do you think he'll end up being on the active roster come Sunday?
I got to assume so. You're looking at this roster. You got Tre'Davious White, who is just a injury risk. I think Quentin Lake was probably their strongest defensive back last week. Kobe Durant, as you said, on the injury report, and then after that, you're looking at a handful of undrafted free agents. Josh Wallace, Charles Woods. Russ East can play some corner as well, but definitely not an every down guy you're gonna want up. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the field. So yeah, I've smart. You got to have these guys. You can't have too many defensive backs. And again, this is a group that's getting banged up. So smart. He's familiar with the defense. He's familiar with Chris Shula and vice versa. So I think again a good smart move they had to make.
Yeah, when you look at this Cardinals offense, the Rams get a bit of a break in the sense that it's not in terms of just talent on paper. Now they can do some really nice things, and obviously with Kyler Murray, they're always a threat in the passing game. But they don't necessarily have the talent that, say, the Lions had. They had to go up against last week, and so with the kind of banged up secondary, they get a little bit of a break. Marvin Harrison Jr., a highly touted rookie, only one catch last week. And so as a rookie, he'll get more involved in the game plan, obviously. And so he's the big name to watch out for. But Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, these are not like big name talent players that you have to really worry for. Obviously, they're NFL players. Anyone can beat you. The one I would be most worried about would be Trey McBride, the tight end, former Colorado State Ram, one of the schools I wanted to go to back when I was in high school in Colorado. But McBride, I think, had a solid game, and he's another solid tight end option. As the Rams, I thought, played pretty well against Sam Laporta last week. So certainly that's what to look for, but I think they get a bit of a break, and this secondary, I think, can certainly play well. And then, yeah, I would agree with you. I don't see how Akilla Witherspoon is not on the active roster come game day. Maybe he doesn't start right out the gate. But seeing as he knows the overall defensive system, obviously it's a little different with Shula versus Raheem Morris, but it's a lot of similarities. He could come in and obviously was at practice yesterday after being signed, but he can come in and pretty much, I would think, pick it up really, really quickly. And there's not a huge learning curve there. So I'd be shocked if he wasn't on the active roster. I'd be shocked if he didn't play as well, whether it's a start or just coming in throughout the game. But I think a good warranted addition. I think it was necessary. I'm surprised it took this long. There's talks that other teams had interested in him as well. So it was more of a negotiation of getting him back that took long, not necessarily because neither side wanted to happen. So it was just a longer negotiation, which I don't understand. We talked about with Stafford, like these things I think should take 24 hours. Like go back and forth as many times as it take and come with it. Like, what is this, like dating? We're like, all right, I'm going to give it 7 days and then we'll respond. Like,
you got to play cool.
Who's boss.
Yeah.
Like our first date went well. I'm not responding for 3 days. Like, he can call me first. I don't get it. But
yeah, I mean, from a just kind of a leverage position, I mean, Akello's in the right spot, over the Rams. I mean, the Rams, they're in a bad spot with their injuries, but yeah, I mean, you were saying that they get kind of a easy break, and looking at the schedule, there's a chance that they can come out of this, not in the negative column. They can come out of going into the bye, depending on what happens with Jordan Love, with a record of 3-2, and maybe even at worst at 2-3. With who they're playing here. This Cardinals, very beatable team. Mm-hmm. The Bears don't look as fierce as maybe we thought they would be, and then again, Packers without Jordan Love. So, if they can pull this off, they can come out of this looking not as bad as these injuries may look right now.
Yeah, and it feels, to that point, this feels almost like a must win. Now, must wins, I don't like getting that early on because, again, like we said, this Rams team was 3-6 last year and made the playoffs. But like you said, if they lose this game, drop to 0-2, they get the Niners the following week. And I know Rams fans hate the Niners, but seeing what the Niners did to the Jets on Monday night, they're going to run for 250 yards on this Rams defense based on what we saw last Sunday. I'd say that's going to happen. Things can improve, but just based on those two game tape performances, the Niners are going to run the football because you've got to think it's looking like McCaffrey may be out again this week, and then he'll be fully healthy for that week 3 matchup. So that's not a game that I like this current roster in. And then, as you alluded to, Bears and Packers, both winnable games. But if you're going 0-3 into those, now those feel like absolute must wins. Like, can you imagine going into the bye 0-5 or 1-4? That's very different even still than being 3-6. Maybe 1-4 and 3-6 are the same amount of games apart. But that feels like such a larger uphill climb. And so we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but just to single down the importance of this game, not only is it a divisional game, and so you cannot fall down 0-2 or 0-1, I guess, in your division, but this team might be the most beatable team as it stands right now, depending on the Jordan Love injury. If he's back, if he's still out, then maybe the Packers. But Packers, remember, a lot of pundits picked the Packers to be in the Super Bowl this year.
It's true.
Obviously, things change without your quarterback, but that just tells you overall, a lot of people believe that roster is really good. The Bears, huge acquisitions over the offseason. And it obviously looked very rusty in week one, but Caleb Williams is only going to get better. Their offense is only going to get better. So this Cardinals team for sure is their most winnable game. It's unfortunate they're going up against it shorthanded, but because of the coach they have, because of the quarterback they have, they can beat anyone any given Sunday. It's just a matter of how they can outlast and outwit their opponents because of these injuries. And it's the NFL. This isn't college where you have 90 player rosters and you lose one and, well, guess what? There's a 5-star sitting behind it that might be just as good. Like, you lose your starter in the NFL, there's a big drop off to that backup, and specifically on the offensive line. So we'll see how it goes, but it's going to be a tough task. Just ending kind of with the preview a little bit, like, how do you feel about this defense going up against this Cardinals offense, specifically, in the run game, when you look at James Conner being kind of that real dominant back touchdown vulture? Like, how do you feel they can stop him in this rush offense?
Yeah, I think that you got James Conner and you have Kyler Murray to contend with. Kyler Murray was the team's leading rusher last week. And we haven't seen this defense, this very young defense, going up against a mobile quarterback like Kyler Murray. So that's my main concern is the Lions ran up the gut. They just punished the smaller defensive linemen that way. Now you're kind of worrying about the edges as well. When Michael Hoyt is out there, are they just going to call a designed run to get Kyler Murray out in the perimeter and in space? So, those are my, obviously James Conner can go up the gut, but you're adding this other layer into there. So I'm definitely worried about that, but this isn't the same offensive line. This isn't the Lions offensive line. This is, Jonah Williams is out. Greg Beacham let tons of pressures in. He was the AG Arcuri of the Cardinals last week. So, I think that because of that, I think it's not going to be a blowout, but it's going to be a lot closer than it would have been, with a healthy team on the field.
Yeah, I agree. I think I mean, it's night and day difference between these offensive lines they're going to be going up against. So hopefully we'll see a night and day difference, because when you look at this defensive line for, how good I think Jared Verse did look overall, 15 total pressures, which, is not terrible by any means, but if you can get that number up in the 20s, that's when you've had a pretty solid game. 2 total sacks they had on Jared Goff, obviously Jared Verse with the one, and then Byron Young with the other. So both your outside guys getting in on the action, but hopefully we'll see more of that. And what's really going to be important for this defensive line, and you look at Bobby Brown, who I didn't think had a great game, not a terrible game, but not a great game.
He got pushed around.
Got pushed around for sure. I think Kobe Turner had a quiet game. Wouldn't say a bad game, but a quiet game. Braden Fisk, not terrible, definitely not great, but looked like a rookie out there. Looked a little undersized, a bit, if you will. What's going to be really important for them is how gaps sound and how much they stick within their roles of, gap integrity. Because as we alluded to with Kyler Murray, Jared Goff's a statue, and they let him get out once for that giraffe-like scamper of a first down from Jared Goff. Kyler Murray will do that to you all day if you let him get out. So just because, let's just say, just if Verse and Young have great around the edge presence, if those guys in the middle are not sound and there's gaps, Murray's going to run up the middle all day long for first downs or to extend plays. And so it's going to be real important that if Verse and Young's roles are crashing on the outside, that the interior guys are keeping Murray and allowing the whole pocket to collapse on him. Because if they leave those gaps open in the middle, he's going to beat them all day, just gashing him up the middle. And obviously, if they do in the draw game with James Conner, they'll expose that and just in rush lanes in general. So this defensive line, to me, has the most important job, as they usually do in most games. But containing Murray, keeping him in the pocket, not letting him get through rush lanes in the center of the line, because I truly believe Verse and Young will have good games. I think they're better than the tackles they go up against. But it's the interior guys, how they're able to contain Murray and keep him there and not just, allow him to leak through the middle when the rush is crashing down the outside.
Yeah, I think of that Byron Young sack, that beautiful stunt. It was just so nice. It was so nice.
Gorgeous.
But per Cody Alexander, who does the Match Quarters Substack, which is fantastic. If you guys want to know anything about defense, he's got all the answers there. Go check that out for sure. He calculated that over 50% of the time they were running stunts, which does sometimes leave those edges open, but it does clog up the running lanes there. Yeah. And that was the highest rate in the NFL. And that may have just been the game plan for the Lions because their offensive line is so super dominant. But I'm just curious how that's all going to work out. Are they going to continue to try to stunt into the middle, move your outside linebacker, pull him around? It's like a pulling guard or something like that for those who don't know what a stunt is. But so just something interesting to watch there is, are they setting the edge and are they able to keep that sound as well while also gap sound? As bad as this Cardinals team is sometimes, they're pretty feisty in a lot of ways, and they figured out how to put 28 points up on the Buffalo Bills, and there's some luck involved with that. There's some variance involved in that, but sometimes you create that chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they were winning for a lot of that game. They probably, in some regards, could have won that game in Buffalo. So certainly, and it's a divisional game, so never a slouch, even though the Rams have had their number. But yeah, if they have 50% stunt plays again, the stunt like my daddy, something like your daddy is the new theme song for this Rams team, I think. So we'll have to get that rolling if they have that many. So, all right, do you want to do score prediction? I mean, it's the preview show, so I guess we kind of have to, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, like I said, Arizona is a 1-point favorite right now at home against the Rams. What's your score prediction? The Rams get in the win column, or do they have to go into that week 3 matchup 0-2?
I think they get there. I think they get into the win column. I think this is a 24-23 win.
Love it. Yeah, it's going to be they're going to have to battle with the same intensity as they were last week, because whether people want to hear it or not, they are outmanned right now. But just because of the level of coaching, because of the level of what Matthew Stafford is, I do think they are able to get it done. I think the defense will improve in terms of the run game. So as long as they come out with that same intensity, because they're not going to win this game on just talent and scheme. It's going to have to be a dogfight that they claw to the very end like they did against Detroit. But I do think they get the win. I think, like I said, this is almost a must win in week 2, which is so crazy to say, but it's based on how the schedule goes. So I'm going to go a little low scoring affair. 26-20 was the Lions' final score. I think I'm going to go 20-17. Rams win by 3.
Nice. And just to give everybody the facts on Sean McVay's record against the Arizona Cardinals, the Cardinals have won 3 games since 2016 against these Los Angeles Rams.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. Is that good?
I think that's good. That's real good.
Yeah. But you're right. Jonathan Gannon, scrappy team since he's been there in Arizona now. So they were a lot better last year than I think they expected, and we'll see how this year goes. But there you have it. So we both have the Rams winning, moving back to, we both had them losing last week. We wanted them to be proven.
No, I had them pulling it out.
We did have them winning. You're right. Yeah, I had them losing. But we both have them winning this week. So hopefully they get back to 1-0 or 1-1, 1-0 on the week. But we will be live after the game. It's a 1:00 game, so 4:30, 5:00 we'll do live, and then should be back like normal on Monday. And then, our normal Thursday show. So thank you all for hanging out with us. As always, please leave your comments, your thoughts on where this team is, how high they can go, and how they can kind of survive this slate until they get these key starters back from the IR. Obviously, also Alaric Jackson will be back next week against the Niners. He was a little bit banged up in camp, but I'm guessing with the suspension, being able to sit out, he should be fully healthy, just resting those loins. So should be good there, but we'll talk about that at another time. So leave us your comments. Rams LAFB is the YouTube channel. Please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out immensely. LAFBnetwork.com to check out all of our Rams content, all of our Rams articles, plus our podcast lives right there as well. Anywhere you get your podcast, just search Rams Skinny. And on Twitter, at RL Anderson LAFB, at Ryan Dyer LAFB, or at LAFB Network is our main account. For Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyer. Thank you all. Have a blessed weekend. Enjoy the game. Let's all hang out, talk on Sunday, and hopefully root on a Rams win.